y'all out here hopefully within the hour. Yesterday's went a little quicker than that, so depending on how many questions they should have, we'll hopefully be out here in an hour. So this is about our social media policy that we have just rolled out, and Claudia, myself, and Arnita is usually with us as well. She may pop in, she had another meeting she had to attend, but we have been working behind the scenes for quite some time now. 5 years? At least 5 years before I came, to put a social media policy together. Actually, Mandy had started this process, and then we picked it back up again about 6 months to a year ago. And when I say that, we literally have been working in meetings, a lot of meetings behind the scenes. The three of us have constantly been talking social media policy, researching it from a communication standpoint, from an HR perspective, as well as legal. And that's why Arnita was involved, to make sure we were following all guidelines legally as well. We have been in touch with our communications team, so from all different departments. And then we had a focus group, and I know a few of you were a part of that. And that was very helpful because we actually ran this whole policy by the focus group, which was made up of a lot of the different departments as well, and got great feedback on it. We ran it through the department heads, twice, 3 times, something like that, twice. Mick has reviewed it. We've gone back numerous times to the table and advised things. So just so you know, we have been doing a lot of behind the scenes work to make sure that this policy worked. So wanted to let you know up front that we have other policies, as you all know. You want to tell me the other 2 ethics ordinances?
The 2 policies that also speak to this that we have used in the past are the ethics policy and the electronic communications policy. We also, I'll talk a little bit about the personnel ordinance as well. So when we've had issues with social media posts that have had personnel impact and from the HR side, those are the policies we've used. And now we have another policy, the social media policy, that we can turn to if there's an issue.
Yeah, so it's a little more detailed, and that's what, I'm just going to read the top of it. I'm not going to read this whole policy to you. There's going to be sections that we even skip over, and I'll explain why, but then I will go through some more detail, and so will Claudia, on some of the pieces.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Your hard time hearing me?
I have a hearing issue, and I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I will try my best to talk as loud as I can. If you can't hear me, let me know, but it's probably as loud as I can project without the microphone. I don't have a microphone, I'm sorry. So the purpose of this policy was to establish policies and procedures that are related to the use of electronic technology, which is including city-approved sites, personal web pages, internet postings, social networking websites, web blogs, which are blogs, and recording or broadcasting devices by city coworkers, and to ensure such usage is not detrimental to other city coworkers or the city organization. All content posted on social media is subject to all city policies, and that's what Claudia was talking about. So even though this one's just coming out, this has always been something that we have had guidelines on. This is just becoming more specific. I'm not going to go through all the definitions. You can read it. This is online. It's under HR. It's under our policies. It's social media policies, so you can go through each line of it. But a couple things covers personal web pages, non-personal web pages, such as like websites and things like that. Social networking sites, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, any of that. And just because something may not be listed, it includes anything that comes out tomorrow. So this includes all social media. Original content, and I'm going to tell you what that is, any information, photos, videos, documents, and anything that the City of Hickory coworkers have created while employed with the City of Hickory for purposes of promoting, explaining, informing the public, and documenting work for the City of Hickory. So that will come back up later. And weblog or blogging sites. So you can read through those definitions if you're curious more about those. Part A, we broke this into 3 categories, and Part A I'm not going to go over, only because it's covering, so if you are picked or asked to be an administrator on a city site, and just so you know, if you're curious as to what the city sites are, there's a page in the policy that lists all of the sites, and I'll just give you a little reference to this. When I started about 4 years ago, there were probably, I think, maybe 2 sites. There's now upwards of maybe close to 15. So in 4 years, we have grown social media incrementally, and doesn't mean that everybody gets a page, it doesn't mean everybody has a site or Facebook, but the ones that we deem necessary and that we feel are appropriate, we talk to them beforehand. We have a whole approval process as to how somebody gets a page or doesn't get a page, and who's going to maintain that page. The department heads involved, and then the administrators. So Part A covers if you're an administrator on a city page. So if you are, or if you become one, you'll work with me and your department head, and we'll go through Part A. So you can read through that. I don't want to waste your time going through that because it's a more detailed piece of what, who's doing what work as administrators. The part I'm going to go through is Part B, and then Claudia's going to take Part C. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us, and we can open up at the end as well for questions. Some things you may have questions on may come up under Claudia's, because I know a lot of people are probably curious about the personal side of things. This part that I'm going to cover is the use of social media as a city employee on a city site. Okay, so one of those sites that I just showed you, this is us as city employees on one of those sites. So this is not talking about your own personal pages and things like that. That'll be the next topic. I am going to go into more detail on this. First of all, I want everybody to know, we are encouraging social media. We don't want people to feel like we don't want you to use social media or communicate on social media. We do. It's a great form of communication. We use it for the city. We just really want to make sure we are protecting our brand, our Life Well Crafted message, and you as city employees, as well as what we're putting out there as a message on behalf of the city. So that's really where this is coming from. So please know that we really took a lot of time and effort to make sure that was well written in here, that you didn't feel like we were trying to tell you and control you in social media. That's not the point. The point is we're an entity that really has a message to our citizens who pay their taxes to employ us. So we want to make sure that what we put out there is appropriate for them and for the city. Another thing is anything you post on social media, you may think is today and today only, but it's not. It lives on forever. So, and usually I talk to this at the end, but I'll just mention it now. If you post something on social media and it's regarding city business, you've opened yourself up to a public document. Okay, so same thing as if you used a cell phone or email or anything like that for city business, and you communicate about city business, you have officially made your page or yourself open to the ability, if asked, to have a public records request. Not saying that that's going to happen, not saying that has happened. It hasn't happened to us. It has happened in other places. So that's part of also, there's a lot of legal stuff happening in social media that we want to make sure everybody's just covering. Okay, so number one, departments have the option of allowing employees to participate in approved social media sites as part of their job duties. For example, me, part of my job is to do social media. Department heads may allow or disallow employee participation in any social media activities in their departments. So for example, the police department has a policy that is stricter than this. Theirs is allowed to be stricter than this. They're not having to bend theirs to this. They're allowed to tell their employees what they need to make sure that their department is running smoothly for a police department. So if your department head is giving you some kind of instruction regarding the use of social media, they already know this policy. They already know that they're allowed to tell you to refrain from the use of it, or you can use it if you're an administrator or something like that. The use of city email address and communicating in the official capacity of a city position will constitute conducting city business. Same thing I just said. So if you get on social media on any of our sites and you start to communicate official business, you are officially making yourself a spokesperson for the city. Okay? That's my job. I'm trained to do that. We have others who are trained to do that. Just know we'll get into more detail about this if it gets really complicated when you do that, because you open yourself up to having to communicate messages that you may not have all the information on. So we're just using caution on that. City policy, rules, regulations, and standards of conduct apply to employees who engage in social media activities while conducting city business. Pretty self-explanatory. Employees representing the city government via social media sites must conduct themselves at all times as a representative of the city and in accordance with all personnel, administrative, and operating procedures and policies. in fact, what Claudia was talking about was no different than you've always had your ordinances and personnel ethics, all those things. Protect personal privacy, the privacy of citizens, and the information the city holds. Follow all privacy protection laws, for example, HIPAA, and protect sensitive and confidential city information. So, for example, if, and this happens, if there's a situation with an employee and it's a personnel issue and it's covered under HR, Integrity of the Record may pick up on something. They may run a story about it. That does not mean that we are going to be posting that information on our social media pages. Okay, we follow the guidelines by HR standards, HIPAA guidelines, anything that's economic development that's done behind closed doors with city council, anything that's done, in closed session, those things aren't going to get posted on our social media sites. So we're going to follow the guidelines and the protective information of the city at all times. We do not disclose any information that would jeopardize the safety of city staff or the disclosure of personal or confidential information. Pretty much the same thing. Follow all copyright laws, public record laws, retention laws, fair use and financial disclosure laws, and the other laws that might apply to the city or a functional area of the city. So, regarding copyright laws, things like that, we're not going to be posting things that have copyrights that we are not allowed to be posting and those type of things on our pages. Okay, here's one to think about for a second. Do not cite city vendors, suppliers, citizens, coworkers, or other stakeholders without their approval. Further, employees shall not promote or endorse or criticize any vendor, contractor, or supplier. Any social media content must be neutral in that regard. We all work with vendors, we all work with different companies, we all work with different citizens. We are never going to post about a vendor, pro or against, on any of our social media sites. We're not going to talk about citizens, we're not going to talk about, I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but those are the type of things that you're never going to see on our city pages. So whether you love or hate a vendor you're working with, it's not something we're ever going to see or put out on city pages. Do not use ethnic slurs, profanity, personal insults, or engage in any conduct that would not be acceptable in the city's workplace. Avoid comments or topics that may be considered objectionable or inflammatory. Use good basic writing skills such as grammar and spelling. Okay, so I'll use this example again that I used yesterday, and I'll call myself out for it. So if you think it's easy to be the spokesperson on social media, maybe on your personal page it is. But for a city page, it's not, because we have a lot of people I could probably hire to be proofreaders for me. Because if I do anything that I spell something wrong mistakenly, it's going to get caught and noticed, I will tell you that. So for example, on social media, I had an event that I went to, took a bunch of pictures. I was in a big hurry to get them out there and make sure they were done that day. So I come back and I download them all and I get them all out on social media, and it was the Easter egg hunt for Parks and Recreation, and it was all these kids running, 3 different pictures of kids running to get the Easter eggs. And I wrote, "They're off." And I spelled "they're" wrong. I don't know what I was thinking, but I spelled it wrong. So I see these posts when I come back in the office the next day, and I'm like, what is this person saying? It's a citizen, and they're writing, I wrote T-H-E-I-R, and they're like T-H-E-Y'-R-E, and that was the only comment under every picture. I'm like, what? Still not getting it. So, oblivious. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I spelled it wrong. So people will catch every little thing, and they will call you out on it. And sometimes it's a nice thing, and I'm glad they do it. I'm glad they did, so I could fix it, so I didn't look stupid. But, sometimes there's things that you're going to put out there, and grammar is important, spelling is important, the way you word something is important, very much how you word something is important. Because, you're writing, you're not talking in person, so there is a definite tone to writing. So just wanted to give you that example, because I'm at fault just as much as anybody else. So correct mistakes and do not alter previous posts without indicating that a change has been made. So for example, in that case, I corrected it, I fixed it. But I would not edit a post, for example, if there was something that was normal and said, and then there was a lot of comments coming from that citizens were talking back and forth about, and I was like, maybe I should change that to say, we don't do that. Now, if I'm going to change it, I'm going to make a comment that, this has changed. Now, if a time is wrong or something, I will let people know, hey, the time that was incorrect, it's 6 o'clock, not 6:30. You just make comments like that. frame any comments or opposing views in a positive manner. If there are any questions about how to do this, you can contact me or our communication specialist for that. For example, we're trained to speak, hopefully, in a positive way, in a good way, to our citizens, to the people that we work with. So making sure that everything is framed that way, that represents the city in a really positive way, it does take work, because when citizens, when I say citizens, it could be anybody, it doesn't have to be our citizens, comment on something, it's not always 100% pro-city. They're going to have questions, and they're going to come back with some detailed thoughts. And I'll use Mick as an example. He's been very good at allowing citizens to have conversations back and forth on his page, and they talk it out, and then he'll jump in. So he doesn't jump in immediately and just start to talk to it, he lets them kind of opposing views have discussion, which is good, because we want healthy discussion. And then he'll come in and say, great discussion, here's the facts of that. So I think that helps, and that's what social media is for. But again, it's taking a step back sometimes and not letting the fuel of whatever's happening fuel us into a conversation that we shouldn't have just yet. Add value to the city of Hickory through our interaction and provide worthwhile information and perspective. Use of social media that involves any kind of criminal activity or harms the rights of others may result in criminal prosecution or civil liability to those harmed or both. And coworkers violating this policy will be subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. And Claudia can talk to that, because we had some questions about that yesterday. It doesn't mean the first response is you're fired. It's not that. It's a case by case, and Claudia can talk more to that. We're going to move over to the personal side of things, and Claudia's going to kind of jump into that role, and then we can talk more.
And then we can do Q&A, or you can, if you have any questions of Dana right now. But typically, after we go through this next section, then people have a few questions. And a lot of times Arnita is here with us to answer maybe the legal component, but I think we can cover most of it, and if not, we can get back with you. So the section I want to talk about, and we do encourage you to please look up this policy, read through the policy, because by signing that you've attended this training, you're telling us that you do understand all the tenets of this policy. So, and I start my section off just by reminding us all, we are public employees. And whether we like that or not, I've always thought that puts us at a little higher level, of responsibility, even in our personal lives and out in public. And which is why our vision says we deliver high quality services through excellent and ethical coworkers. And that should translate, to our personal lives as well. If you're like me, your neighbors know you work for the city. Your church members know you work for the city. So what Dana was talking about, there may well be a post on your page that talks about city business. But so here's what we would want you to do in those cases. We want you to have web pages. We want them to be positive interactions for you. If someone comments on your page about city business, the best thing to do would be to refer them either to the communications office, to the city manager's office, to our online citizen action center. So there's a lot of avenues. So instead of engaging in this conversation and answering, why are they paving 5th Street and not 3rd Street, et cetera, you know what? Here's the city's information number, or I'd be glad to send a message for you and have them contact you. But don't engage on your personal site about city business. We also want you to be very cognizant not to post pictures of work sites. And Todd was here yesterday, and Arnita had a couple of examples. If we are not authorized to post a picture from a work site, and that could be the health fair, a trenching and shoring, a snow plowing operation, a paving operation, those have to be approved through the communications office who funnels it all through the city manager's office. And mostly because, not that we don't want that information out there, but if we don't vet those pictures, there could be something in the picture, for example, an OSHA violation. You could have a picture of someone in there who says, I never authorized you to take that. There could be risk management issues if you're at an accident scene, a fire scene, and we talked a lot yesterday about, I think if it's your own family and something is happening, you don't want to see that on someone's Facebook page, and God forbid see it there first before you know about it. So you had a good example with Chuck yesterday about some pictures that you had taken that might put that in perspective.
So I had gone out, this was a while ago, I had gone out and just taken some pictures of one of the crews working, and I thought they were great pictures, they turned out great, and the guys did a great job. So then before I was gonna post anything, Chuck was in my office, and I said, hey, take a look at these pictures, tell me what you think. And he looked at them, and he was like, nope, nope, nope. I'm like, why? They didn't have all the proper gear on. They didn't have all the gear on that would be required for OSHA. And he said, and it's not because he was trying to be tough about it, it's, people can get hurt, seriously hurt, and die for things that aren't, kept up to by code and have violations. So, it was one of those eye-opening experiences for me that I'm not OSHA trained in that sense to understand what he knows. So I vet all pictures, all of those things through the department heads, making sure their managers are on board before I post them. So you all don't see what we're doing behind the scenes a lot, but there's a lot of that work going on behind the scenes that's making sure that those type of things don't hit our social media, because Arnita had a great conversation about those OSHA violations. They're expensive and they're very detailed, and we don't want to get into those things. If we can handle those internally, it would be nice to be able to say ahead of time, you know what, let's go deal with the team, let's talk to them, make sure they have their equipment in the future, and let's make sure that everybody's ready in the future for a picture, instead of it going out to the world, somebody getting called out on that, and then OSHA, they search, they do look at these things, they're not oblivious to social media, so they could look at those things and call us right out on it. So that's a lot of the behind the scenes kind of stuff.
And I'm sure all of you have gone to your conferences or seen in the paper, anyone who wears a uniform, who has anything that represents the city's brand, needs to be very cautious or not post that on their personal page. Because if you're, in a bar, enjoying a few drinks, dancing on the tabletop, and you're wearing a city t-shirt, that comes back on the city. You're representing the city's brand. And I say that tongue-in-cheek, but just always be aware of how you might be portraying the city's brand. HR back there's laughing. That worries me a little, but that's okay. All right. Any conduct that's impermissible under the law. So anything that is unlawful, whether you do it in person or in writing, obviously is also unlawful on your personal web page. You don't want to discriminate, say anything obscene or defamatory, damaging someone else's reputation, because you are a city employee. We are not to post, transmit, reproduce, share, or disseminate information that could put the city into any kind of conflict or dispute that would have the effect of impairing another coworker. And what I'm thinking there was, some of us are privy to information in our daily work that is not public information. If I know someone's an undercover police officer, or a fire inspector is about to go, say, to a certain club or restaurant one evening, that is information that I only have because I'm an employee of the City of Hickory, proprietary information that cannot be posted. Anything that disrupts the smooth and orderly flow of work. So again, anything that we're out doing in public as a city employee or as a citizen that can somehow, and this has happened, people have seen employees' web pages and brought it to the city. So it's either someone made a comment and they bring it to HR, the city manager's office, to Dana, or someone saw something, or a picture someone posted, and then that can have negative consequences for the employee. Anything that violates our anti-harassment policy, and anything that harms the goodwill of the city. So basically, I want to say this is the common sense section. The city is our employer, the city is good to us as an employer, and we in turn should not be posting anything on our web pages to put the city in jeopardy. Again, anything that would jeopardize the safety of any city staff, any of our public safety officials that we know in certain roles, not to disclose that. And then the final thing is, this policy is new, and yes, it does affect personal web pages. We previously did not have that in writing, but we've always had the personnel ordinance, which speaks to professional conduct. We've always had anti-harassment policy and other policies. The electronic communications policy that says You do not use city equipment for anything other than personal use, but this just takes it a little bit further. If it originates on your page or it originates on city equipment, like Dana said, it is subject to disclosure. And so it's all the more important that we follow. Those policies are all there for a reason. So yesterday, at this point, we had a ton of questions.
Well, let me add something real quick. So what we're saying is the things that maybe you shouldn't be doing, but so the things that you could do and can do, we have all these pages out there. So feel free to like all of them if you want. But you can share anything that's on any of those pages. So if you're proud of your city, and I hope you are, and you're proud of your work, and I know a lot of teams, like the fire department raised this point, you know, they have a lot of people who are very proud of what they're doing as a team, and they're putting out fires, it's a great thing. We're just asking that with, for example, fire department, they're working on a page, they're gonna flow those pictures through their managers who are already working with me and administrators to make sure that can go out on their page. Once it goes on their page, their teams can share it. So it's not saying that they can't put anything out there, it's just gonna vet through a process to make sure that it's approved for the city page. But anything on our Hickory Well Crafted, our City of Hickory page, Twitter, you can share that stuff, you know, forward that stuff on. You got parade flyers for this Friday, share it, tell people about it. We want you to communicate city information. You know, we want you to communicate the good things that are going on, the great pictures, the team stuff that we do, but we just want you to do it in mind with the brand and the message that we're putting out there, and not creating your own specific one with a logo and a look and things that are not flowing through the city. So hopefully that helps you as well. City information you can put out, because we are putting out tons of information all the time. It's just a matter of we need you to help share it too.
What questions? do you
Questions,
want to
thoughts?
ask? Likes, dislikes?
So quiet today. We scare y'all? Makes sense. We really want to hear your feedback if you have any thoughts on anything. If it doesn't make sense, because now's the time to discuss it.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So, and I may have missed it, so sorry if I did. So if you happen to like a business, let's just, I mean, say you like Target, I don't know, I'm just picking that, and you happen to post something about Target on your page, but, I mean, is that as city employees, are we picking one business over the other, almost like we're not supposed to refer, or, you know, how far does it go?
What I was referring to was on city sites. So we can't speak to a specific business vendor contract on a city site
On a city site. Okay.
at all. So we're
Right,
not going to go
sure.
out and say, go hire so-and-so.
Right, that makes sense.
They do great work, because then we're
Okay.
becoming the advocate for the business.
Right,
But on your personal sites, you're all going to like
yeah.
Targets
that's
or
what I said.
whatever. You can, yeah,
That's
that's
no
your
big deal.
personal stuff.
Okay.
We're not telling you you can't do your personal
Okay,
stuff like that, yeah.
all right.
Yes.
We can mention sponsorships, can't we?
Give an example.
Say like on the Parks and Rec site, there's pictures of an event, and as a programmer,
Oh, yeah.
I can go in and comment and say, hey, we'd like to thank so-and-so for attending.
Because you're commenting and using the information from an already approved page.
Right.
That's fine.
And you're,
Okay.
are you talking like as an administrator on that page?
No, as a person that would, I mean, I actually, work for the department, but I would also possibly make a comment
Mm-hmm.
to
On
point
that
out,
Right.
that
Yeah.
we would like to thank.
If they are a sponsor of an event that like Lowe's Foods is sponsoring our parade, if somebody on your personal time is out there talking about Lowe's Foods in conjunction with the parade as the sponsor, as a great business, we appreciate them being part of the parade, or, we encourage that because they are a sponsor and they are a partner of ours. We're just asking that you're not out there saying, we want you to go, as a city employee, I want you to go only shop at Lowe's Foods because they are our parade sponsor. We don't want to do that. So, and I think you're probably doing it the right way from what I'm hearing, what you said. Yeah.
What about if somebody puts something on your page, makes a comment on your page that is bad, but you didn't do it, but it's on your personal page, and they're saying
We
something
had
really
that
bad?
question
How-
yesterday.
How
in a
is,
sense.
how am I responsible for that or
You
am
are
I?
not.
Okay.
If you don't engage with that person and you're not writing back, if you can hide or delete the post, it's even better, but what the person said is, how can I be held responsible for something someone else does on my page? If somebody brings it to our attention or brings it to the attention of someone at the city, there might be a quick conversation, but you're not responsible for what someone else puts when you're not engaging in it.
Because there's lots of time I go a while without even looking at it.
Yeah, exactly, and you wouldn't even know.
No, you're not gonna be held responsible for something that somebody else puts on your page. Now, if you decide to get into a conversation with that person about what they put on your page as a city employee, that's different, because then, and you can direct them, if they have, say they write on your page such and such about the city, and you're like, you know what, if you have a concern, you can contact such and such at the city, or here's a phone number you can address. You're then doing what we're asking. You're directing them back to the department, you're directing them back to the main city number, whatever. That's appropriate. You can engage in that way. But to have a conversation about a topic, because, you know, there's, whether it be a tax, say it's take taxes, say it's taxes, and somebody starts talking, knows you're a city employee and starts talking about taxes on your page. Best not to get into that whole discussion as a city employee, pro or against, on your page, because then you're starting to advocate for one or the other to this person with the city. Does that make sense? But you will not be held responsible for somebody that's posting something on your page that you have no control over. But if it's bad enough, like for us, on our city pages, we do not delete things off our pages. We're very transparent. The only things we will delete is if somebody is swearing, defamatory, libelous, anything that's really, really bad like that. And we have a caveat written in there that says we'll delete it or we'll hide it. But we keep stuff out there that's just somebody doesn't like something. We let them talk about it. You know, it's okay. Not everybody has to have the same opinion on social media. So we do keep that kind of stuff out there, but we will hide things. We've had some strange comments on our pages that are random and don't make sense to the post at all. And if it continues, we do start to hide or block people. That nothing pertains to what's being conversated about. So sometimes people just write random stuff out there.
We're also not asking you to watch other people's web pages. So it's not, you know, come tell us what people are, it's none of that. It's just, how is the city being represented on my page? It's between me and Facebook and the city. So we're not asking you to tell us who's posting what. Believe it or not, if it's something that concerns the citizens, it makes its way to the city. So it's really more positive, representing positively, and just being mindful of what you're putting out there.
Any other thoughts? Okay, well, that was simple or
Easy?
Yeah, that's right. Well, if anything comes to you after you have time to digest it, you know, feel free to let us know. If you have any questions, we'll
And Dawn has already posted the policy, so it's on the HR page. Read through it, and if you have any questions, then feel free to tell us, because it'll help us with other trainings.
Yeah, we're going to be continuing to do other trainings. So if you know people in your departments that haven't been able to make it to these two, we're going to start doing like individual departments that are outside of the city hall, so they can come to those too. We're starting to work on those probably after Thanksgiving. So we'll be doing a bunch of those. Thank you for your time. We appreciate y'all coming today.